The dust of Talos Prime swirled around Captain Mirasol as she approached the massive stone structure embedded in the mountainside. 500 years after humanity joined the Galactic Alliance, archaeological expeditions to the fringes of known space still revealed unexpected connections to their past. But this discovery felt different. "Energy readings are off the chart, Captain," said Lieutenant Ria Tan, her tactical officer, examining her scanner. "Whatever this structure is, it's not entirely dormant." Mira nodded. Her dark eyes focused on the intricate symbols carved into what appeared to be a doorway. The patterns seemed familiar somehow, as if she'd seen them in a half-forgotten dream. "The Alliance database has no record of any civilization on Talos Prime," she said. "Yet here we stand before what looks suspiciously like a temple. Behind them, the small research outpost of Aegis Expedition Team glimmered in the harsh sunlight. Established 3 months ago when their scans detected unusual energy patterns, the outpost had become home to 12 researchers and support staff, all human, a rarity in Alliance missions. Mira brushed sand from the weathered symbols. 5 centuries of diplomacy and peaceful integration had earned humanity a respected place within the Alliance. Yet whispers persisted about their unusual adaptability and resilience. Some species remained wary of humans, treating them with a caution that bordered on fear. "Dr. Carlin should see this," Mira said, stepping back. "These markings share similarities with fragments found on Mars and Proxima Centauri b." As weapons archaeologist and diplomatic officer, Mira had spent her career piecing together humanity's military history. The Alliance's peaceful mandate meant most of her findings remained academic curiosities. But she couldn't deny the thrill of uncovering each new piece of the puzzle. "Captain," Lieutenant Tan's voice carried a note of urgency. "The energy signature just spiked." Mira turned to see the carved doorway emitting a faint, blue glow along the symbols she'd touched. The light pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat awakening after centuries of slumber. "Get Dr. Carlin," she ordered, "and tell Chief Malik to put the station on alert status." Something ancient was stirring on Talos Prime, and Captain Mirasol couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover why some species still regarded humans with such unease. The temple door had just been kicked. Dr. Ivo Carlin arrived within 15 minutes. His tall frame bent over the glowing symbols with scholarly intensity. His weathered face, lined by decades of research across dozens of worlds, showed equal parts excitement and concern. "Remarkable," he muttered, carefully recording the patterns with his scanner. These match partial inscriptions from at least 7 other archaeological sites, all associated with pre-Alliance human expansion. Mira watched him work, arms crossed against the chill desert wind. "What does it say, Doctor?" Carlin hesitated. "It's fragmentary, but if my translations are correct, dormant within the blood of the Star Wanderers lies the essence of war. Only in times of great need shall the temple awaken." A low rumble interrupted them, the ground beneath their feet trembling slightly. The blue glow intensified, spreading from the symbols Mira had touched to trace the outline of an enormous doorway previously hidden by sand and rock. "Captain," Lieutenant Tan's voice wavered. "I think we should step back." Before they could retreat, the glowing lines flared blindingly bright. A pulse of energy erupted outward, knocking all 3 of them to the ground. The wave continued across the desert, washing over their outpost in the distance. Mira's ears rang as she pushed herself up from the sand. Her body felt strange, lighter, more responsive, every sense heightened. She could hear the rapid heartbeats of Carlin and Tan, smell the adrenaline in their sweat, see minute details of the stone structure that had been invisible before. "Status report," she managed, her voice sounding odd to her own ears. Tan checked her scanner, blinking rapidly. The pulse. It passed through the entire outpost. No structural damage, but everyone's vitals are elevated, brainwave patterns showing unusual activity. Carlin was staring at his hands, flexing his fingers with a look of bewilderment. "Captain, I believe we've just triggered something far more significant than an archaeological curiosity." The temple door had slid open a few inches, revealing darkness beyond. "I'm feeling different," Tan admitted, her posture straightening unconsciously into something resembling a combat stance. "As am I," Mira acknowledged, noticing how her mind was rapidly calculating defensive positions, escape routes, tactical advantages of the terrain, thoughts that came unbidden and with military precision beyond her training. Something dormant within them had awakened. "We need to understand what's happening," Mira decided, fighting to maintain her usual diplomatic composure against a rising tide of aggressive strategic thinking. "Dr. Carlin, continue translating these symbols. Lieutenant, secure the perimeter and check on the outpost." As Tan departed, moving with newfound grace and purpose, Mira turned back to the partially open doorway. For the first time in her career, she felt a primal connection to the ancient weapons she'd studied, as if she'd been designed to wield them. The question was, designed by whom, and for what purpose? 3 days after the temple door opened, the changes in the Aegis expedition team could no longer be ignored. Chief Engineer Leon Malik, normally a gentle, thoughtful man, had reconfigured the outpost's defensive systems with such ruthless efficiency that it now rivaled military installations. Lieutenant Tan had developed reflexes and coordination beyond human norms, demonstrating combat techniques she'd never been trained in. Dr. Carlin worked tirelessly, his need for sleep seemingly diminished, translating the massive archive of information they'd discovered inside the temple. The chamber beyond the door contained no treasures or artifacts, only walls covered in the same symbols, telling a story none of them had expected. Mira sat in her quarters, reviewing Carlin's latest translations on her tablet. Her hand trembled slightly as she scrolled through the text. Humanity was engineered for war. The translation read, "When the ancient sovereignty threatened all sentient life, 17 species combined their genetic knowledge to create a weapon, a species of warriors whose very DNA contained combat capabilities that could evolve to meet any threat. These war gods conquered worlds, decimated fleets, and ultimately drove the sovereignty to extinction. But the power of humanity proved too dangerous to unleash permanently. Rather than exterminate their creation, the Alliance of 17 installed genetic safeguards, dormancy protocols that would suppress humanity's true nature unless specifically activated." Mira set down the tablet, disturbed by the implications. It explained so much: humanity's rapid adaptation to new environments, their relative ease in recovering from catastrophic injuries, their unusual psychological resilience, all engineered traits designed to create the perfect soldier. But if the translations were correct, the 17 species who created humans had died out long ago, their civilizations crumbling while their ultimate weapon slept, forgetting its purpose. Until now. Her communication console chimed. "Captain," Lieutenant Tan's voice sounded tense. "We've detected an incoming fleet at the edge of the system. Non-alliance signatures." Mira felt a surge of anticipation that wasn't entirely her own. "I'll be right there." In the command center, the atmosphere was electric with focused energy. The 6 crew members present moved with precision, their usual casual demeanor replaced by something more predatory. 7 vessels, Tan reported as Mira entered. Configuration unknown, but energy signatures suggest significant weapons capacity. Chief Malik looked up from his station. "They're not responding to standard identification protocols." "Show me," Mira ordered. The display revealed sleek, dark ships moving in formation toward Talos Prime. Something about their design triggered recognition in Mira's awakened instincts. These were hunter vessels, built for pursuit and elimination. "They know," Dr. Carlin said from the doorway, his expression grim. "They know what's happened here." "Elaborate," Mira commanded, surprised by the authority in her voice. The temple was sealed for a reason. Captain, according to my translations, not all species approved of creating humanity. Some feared what might happen if the war gods ever fully awakened. I believe we're looking at descendants of those dissenters, guardians tasked with ensuring humanity never reclaims its power. A cold calculation settled over Mira's thoughts. Their outpost had minimal defenses, a single shuttle for planetary evacuation, and no way to contact Alliance headquarters before the approaching fleet arrived. But something else whispered in her mind. Strategies, tactics, ways to use the environment and their newfound abilities to their advantage. The warrior within her was waking up, assessing the battlefield. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. 18 hours at current velocity, Tan answered. Mira nodded. Decision made. Then we have 18 hours to prepare. Dr. Carlin, I need everything you can translate about our capabilities. Chief Malik, weapons assessment. Lieutenant Tan, gather everyone for briefing in 30 minutes. As her crew dispersed, Mira returned to the partially open temple door. The symbols glowed steadily now, as if acknowledging her presence. "What am I becoming?" she whispered to the ancient stone. Only silence answered, but deep within her DNA, the war god stirred in anticipation. The first attack came 16 hours later, 2 small scout vessels detaching from the main fleet to assess the outpost's defenses. Mira watched from the command center as the scouts entered the atmosphere, their heat signatures blazing on the thermal scanners. Her mind calculated trajectories, weapon payloads, tactical objectives with unsettling clarity. "They're searching for the temple," she observed. "Not immediately targeting us." Chief Malik nodded, his fingers dancing across the defense console. "Should we engage?" "No," Mira decided. "Let them believe we're just a standard research outpost. Maintain minimal power signatures, regular communications patterns." The scouts made 3 sweeps over the region, sensors probing the desert landscape. When they passed over the temple site, their scan intensity increased dramatically. "They've found it," Lieutenant Tan reported. "Energy spike in their communications array." Mira's newly enhanced hearing caught the change in engine pitch as the scouts altered course. "They're coming for a closer look. Everyone maintain position." The sleek, dark vessels descended to hover 200 meters above the temple entrance. Scan beams swept the ancient structure, focusing on the partially open doorway. "Energy buildup," Malik warned. "They're charging weapons." Mira's decision came instantly. Defensive countermeasures only. Target their sensors, not propulsion or weapons. The outpost's concealed defense turrets activated, firing precise electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the scouts' scanning systems without causing catastrophic damage. Both vessels reeled in the air, stabilizers struggling to compensate. "They're withdrawing," Tan announced as the scouts climbed rapidly back toward space. "They'll return with the main fleet," Mira said, certainty in her voice. "And now, they know we're not defenseless." Dr. Carlin entered the command center, his tablet filled with new translations. "Captain, I've discovered something critical. The temple doesn't just awaken dormant abilities. It's a training facility. The symbols contain encoded martial knowledge, battle strategies from thousands of years of warfare." "Can we access this knowledge?" Mira asked. Carlin nodded. "I believe we already are, unconsciously. But direct interaction with the temple interior could accelerate the process." Mira considered this information against the approaching threat. 12 humans with partially awakened abilities against 7 warships. The odds were impossible, yet she felt no fear, only a growing sense of challenge. "Lieutenant Tan, Chief Malik, Dr. Carlin, come with me to the temple. The rest of you, continue fortifying the outpost." As they crossed the desert toward the ancient structure, Mira noticed how differently they all moved now. Efficient, balanced, predatory. The dormant warrior within each of them was rising to the surface. The temple entrance glowed brighter as they approached, responding to their presence. The door had opened further, revealing a corridor leading deep into the mountainside. "What exactly are we hoping to find?" Tan asked, her hand resting instinctively on her sidearm. "Ourselves," Mira replied simply. "Our true capabilities." They entered the temple, and the war gods began to truly awaken. Inside, the temple's walls pulsed with blue light, symbols flowing like liquid across the stone surfaces. The air felt charged with potential, resonating with their altered physiology. "It's responding to us," Dr. Carlin observed, watching the patterns shift and change. "Adapting to our specific genetic makeup." Mira felt drawn deeper into the complex, following corridors that seemed to anticipate their arrival, opening new pathways as they advanced. The others followed, equally entranced by the awakening knowledge within them. They entered a vast circular chamber with a domed ceiling mapped with stars, an ancient representation of the galaxy. At the center stood a raised platform surrounded by pillars covered in densely packed symbols. "This is it," Carlin breathed, "the activation chamber." As they approached the platform, the floor beneath them illuminated, tracking their movements. Mira stepped onto the central dais, and the entire chamber surged with energy. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing combat techniques, weapon schematics, battle formations, knowledge flooding into her mind faster than she could consciously process. Lieutenant Tan gasped, her body moving instinctively into combat stances, projected by the holographic instructor. Chief Malik's eyes widened as engineering knowledge beyond current Alliance technology transferred directly into his consciousness. Mira felt the change most profoundly. Diplomatic restraint battled with awakening battle hunger, her identity stretching to accommodate two seemingly incompatible natures. She was still Captain Mirasol, peace-seeking explorer, but now also something ancient and terrible, designed for conquest. "This is what they fear," she realized aloud. "Not just our physical capabilities, but this duality of nature, the capacity to choose between diplomacy and destruction." Dr. Carlin nodded, watching the symbols race across his vision. Humanity wasn't just engineered for combat prowess. We were designed with moral choice, the ability to unleash or restrain our power. A distant alarm pierced their contemplation. Chief Malik checked his communicator. "Main fleet approaching rapidly. ETA 20 minutes. "They've accelerated their timeline," Mira noted. "They fear what we're becoming." The temple systems responded to her analysis, projecting tactical displays, showing the approaching fleet's formation. Mira studied it, and knowledge clicked into place. Weaknesses in the ship's design, vulnerabilities in their approach vector, countermeasures for their weapons. "We need to return to the outpost," she decided. "Now we prepare for battle." As they exited the temple, Mira felt the struggle within herself intensify. The awakened war god wanted to crush the approaching enemy, to glory in combat and conquest. But her human conscience, the restraint engineered as carefully as the power, held that impulse in check. Balance would be their true strength. Admiral Kar Voss stood on the command deck of the Savorian flagship, 8-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he studied the tactical display. Talos Prime rotated slowly below them, the human outpost a tiny blip on the barren landscape. "Sensors confirm temple activation," his second-in-command reported. "Energy signatures indicate at least 12 humans in various stages of awakening." Voss's face remained impassive, though his inner eyelids flickered in agitation. The Savorian Protectorate had maintained their vigil for over 2,000 years, monitoring the humans from a distance, ensuring the warrior species remained ignorant of their true nature. Now, their worst fears were being realized. "Containment protocols have failed," he said coldly. "We must proceed with purification." "The Alliance will protest the destruction of their personnel," his second warned. "The Alliance does not understand the threat," Voss replied. "These are not merely humans anymore. They are becoming what our ancestors feared most. War gods awakening." He gestured to the tactical display. Deploy all vessels in attack formation. Target the temple first, then the outpost. No survivors. As his orders were relayed, Voss wondered if even 7 warships would be sufficient. The ancient records described fully awakened humans as nearly unstoppable, their combat abilities evolving in real time to counter any threat. His ancestors had opted for containment rather than extermination, believing that humanity's dual nature, the capacity for peace as well as war, deserved preservation. Voss had always considered this a dangerous sentiment. Now he would correct their mistake. Captain Mirasol watched the Savorian fleet enter low orbit, their weapons charging for the initial strike. Her crew had spent every available minute preparing, transforming their research outpost into a fortress with improvised defenses that somehow felt hauntingly familiar to construct. "They're targeting the temple first," Lieutenant Tan reported from her station. Mira nodded. "As expected. Defensive batteries ready?" Chief Malik confirmed. "Ready, Captain. Though our firepower is minimal compared to their capital ships." "We don't need to overpower them," Mira replied, the tactical knowledge from the temple flowing through her thoughts. "Just disrupt their targeting long enough to implement our strategy." The first salvo from the Savorian fleet lanced toward the temple site. Precise, powerful energy beams designed to penetrate deep into the mountainside and collapse the ancient structure. Mira gave the order. "Countermeasures now." The defensive batteries Malik had modified fired not at the ships, but into carefully calculated points in the atmosphere above the temple. The resulting ionization scattered the energy beams, reducing their effectiveness by 60%. "Second wave incoming," Tan warned. "They're adjusting targeting parameters." "Shuttle team, execute!" Mira commanded. 4 kilometers from the outpost, concealed by a ridge of rock, the expedition's shuttle launched vertically with maximum acceleration. Rather than fleeing, it curved toward the Savorian fleet, its small profile and minimal energy signature making it difficult to track. Aboard were 3 crew members whose newly awakened abilities had manifested in ways particularly suited for the mission. Enhanced piloting reflexes, intuitive understanding of enemy systems, and precision timing. "Savorians have detected the shuttle," Tan reported. "They're diverting 2 vessels to intercept." Mira's lips curved in a predatory smile. "Perfect." The diversionary tactic drew exactly the response she'd anticipated. The Savorian fleet's formation opened slightly, just enough for what came next. "Dr. Carlin, are you in position?" she asked via communicator. "Affirmative," came his reply from the temple entrance. "Activation sequence ready?" During their brief exploration, they discovered the temple contained more than just knowledge. It housed defensive systems of its own, dormant for millennia, but still functional. "Execute now," Mira ordered. "At the temple." Dr. Carlin pressed his palm against a specific pattern of symbols. The entire structure hummed with awakening power, the mountain trembling as ancient machinery activated deep within. A pulse of focused energy erupted from the mountainside, precisely targeting the command ship of the Savorian fleet. Their shields flared brilliantly as they absorbed the impact. But the real effect was more subtle, a momentary disruption of their communication systems. "Comm blackout confirmed," Tan announced. 30 seconds until they restore coordination. "All units implement Phase 2, Mira commanded. In those 30 seconds, chaos erupted across multiple fronts. The shuttle crew deployed proximity mines in the path of the pursuing Savorian vessels. From the outpost, precisely aimed electromagnetic pulses targeted sensor arrays on 3 more ships. And at the temple, Dr. Carlin activated a second pulse targeting the flagship's propulsion systems. None of these attacks caused critical damage, but they weren't meant to. They were calculated to fragment the Savorian response, to create confusion and disrupt their coordinated attack. It was working. The enemy fleet's elegant formation dissolved into individual ships reacting to localized threats. Their overwhelming firepower rendered ineffective by the inability to concentrate it properly. Mira watched with cold satisfaction as the tactical display showed the Savorian vessels breaking formation. The knowledge flowing through her veins recognized this pattern, the prelude to victory against a superior force. "They're launching landing craft," Tan reported suddenly. "Ground forces incoming." A new strategy. Then, if they couldn't destroy the temple and outpost from orbit without risking their own vessels, they would send troops to do it directly. Mira nodded, already adapting her plans. "They're playing into our hands. Prepare for ground engagement." She turned to her crew, seeing the same predatory anticipation in their eyes that she felt in her own blood. Part of her was horrified at how naturally warfare came to them now, but another part exulted in it. The war gods were fully awake, and they were hungry. The Savorian ground forces deployed with precision, their combat armor gleaming in the harsh sunlight as they established a perimeter around the temple. 300 elite troops against 12 awakened humans, overwhelming odds by any conventional assessment. Mira watched their deployment from a concealed position half a kilometer away, Lieutenant Tan beside her. The rest of their crew was positioned strategically around the battlefield, each understanding their role with intuitive clarity. "They're being cautious," Tan observed. "Standard containment formation?" Mira nodded. "They still don't understand what they're facing." The Savorians advanced in tight, disciplined units, their movements betraying extensive training. Under normal circumstances, the Aegis expedition wouldn't have stood a chance against such a force. But circumstances were far from normal. "Execute Phase 1, Mira ordered quietly into her communicator. Dr. Carlin, concealed within the temple, activated the final defense protocol they had discovered. The ground beneath the advancing Savorians trembled slightly as ancient machinery awakened. Microscopic drones, technology far beyond current Alliance capabilities, rose from the sand in invisible clouds, infiltrating the enemy's armor systems. The effect wasn't immediately apparent, but Mira could see the first signs of confusion in the Savorian ranks as their tactical displays began showing phantom readings, their communication systems picking up false orders. "Phase 2, she commanded. Chief Malik, positioned at the outpost, initiated the electromagnetic disruptors they had hastily constructed. The devices wouldn't work for long, but they didn't need to, just long enough to further fragment the enemy force. The Savorians' formation began to falter as squad leaders lost contact with Central Command, forced to rely on visual signals and pre-established protocols. "Now," Mira said, rising from her position. She and Tan moved with liquid grace, covering ground with inhuman speed, their bodies responding to the ancient knowledge now flowing freely through their nervous systems. They weren't simply fighting. They were executing combat techniques perfected over thousands of years of warfare, optimized for their specific physiologies. The first Savorian squad never saw them coming. Mira disabled 3 soldiers with precise strikes to weak points in their armor that she somehow knew instinctively. Tan moved like a dancer through another group, her movements so fast they appeared blurred, leaving unconscious bodies in her wake. Across the battlefield, the rest of the Aegis crew engaged with similar effectiveness. Researcher became warrior, scientist transformed to soldier, each human moving with predatory efficiency that belied their lack of formal combat training. The Savorians responded with increasing desperation, their disciplined approach dissolving into chaos as they faced an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move, that exploited weaknesses they didn't know they had. Mira felt the battle hunger rising within her, the temptation to surrender completely to the war god's instincts. It would be so easy to kill, rather than incapacitate, to revel in the destruction of her enemies. But that was not the choice she would make. "Focus on disabling, not killing," she reminded her crew through the communicator. "We are not the monsters they fear us to be." The battle flowed across the desert landscape, the humans moving like a coordinated pack of wolves, separating enemy units, isolating commanders, disrupting communications. Their smaller number became an advantage rather than a liability, allowing them to strike and withdraw, to appear seemingly everywhere at once. Admiral Voss, watching from his command ship, could scarcely believe the tactical display. His ground forces, elite troops with decades of training, were being systematically dismantled by a handful of researchers. "The archives didn't exaggerate," his second-in-command said quietly. "They truly are war gods." Voss's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "Prepare my personal transport. I will handle this myself." Below, Mira sensed the shift in the battle as a new vessel descended from the flagship. Larger than the troop transports, its design spoke of authority and command. "Their leader is joining the fight," she told Tan. "Gather the others. It's time to end this." The Savorian admiral's arrival could mean either escalation or opportunity. Either way, Mira intended to meet it head-on. The war god within her tensed in anticipation of the final confrontation. Admiral Kar Voss's transport landed in a cleared area near the temple, flanked by his personal guard of 12 elite warriors. His tall, slender form emerged, combat armor gleaming with insignia of rank and honor. 8-fingered hands checked his sidearm with practiced efficiency. Mira watched his arrival from the shadow of a rock formation, assessing her opponent with newfound clarity. The Savorian admiral moved with the confidence of extensive combat experience, but also with the slight caution of age, no longer in his physical prime, relying more on experience than raw ability. She signaled to her scattered crew, their positions forming a loose circle around the landing zone. They had disabled or scattered most of the ground forces, but Voss's elite guard presented a new challenge. "Admiral Voss," she called, stepping into view. "I am Captain Mirasol of the Galactic Alliance. This aggression against Alliance personnel violates at least 7 treaty provisions." Voss turned toward her voice, his alien features showing no surprise at her knowledge of his identity. "This is not Alliance territory, Captain, and you are no longer merely Alliance personnel." He gestured toward the temple. "You have awakened something that should have remained dormant. My ancestors should have eradicated your species when they had the chance, rather than believing you could be controlled." Mira approached slowly, hands visible but stance ready. The war god within her assessed every aspect of the situation: distances, weapons, the positioning of Voss's guards, multiple attack vectors. "We've studied the temple archives," she said. "I know what humanity was created to be, but you've missed something crucial about our design." Voss's inner eyelids flickered dismissively. "Enlighten me, war god." "Choice," Mira replied simply. "We were given the capacity for devastating violence. Yes, but also the ability to choose peace, to master our nature rather than be mastered by it." She stopped 10 meters from the admiral. "We could have killed your ground forces. We didn't. Every soldier was disabled, not destroyed." "Temporary restraint proves nothing," Voss countered. "The danger lies in what you could become, what you were designed to become." His guards tensed, weapons ready, as the rest of Mira's crew emerged from their positions around the perimeter. Despite being outnumbered, the Savorians showed no fear, only grim determination. "You mistake potential for inevitability," Mira said. "Humanity has lived in peace with the Alliance for centuries, without knowing our origins. Now that we know, we can ensure the war gods remain awakened but controlled." Voss studied her for a long moment. "Words, only words. I require proof." He removed his helmet, exposing his vulnerable head in a gesture of either supreme confidence or calculated risk. "Face me, Captain Saul, 1 against 1. Show me this control you claim to possess." His guards stepped back, forming a circle around them. Mira's crew tensed, but she signaled them to hold position. "Terms?" she asked, removing her own protective gear. If you defeat me while showing this restraint you speak of, I will withdraw my forces and report that the temple has been destroyed. The secret of humanity's origin remains safe." Voss drew a ceremonial blade from his belt. "But if I see the true face of the war god, if you surrender to your violent nature, my fleet will reduce this planet to ash, regardless of my personal fate." Mira understood the real test being offered. Not just combat prowess, but the ability to maintain her humanity while using her awakened abilities. "I accept," she said, stepping into the circle. The Admiral moved with surprising speed for his age, the ceremonial blade whistling through the air toward her throat. Mira's body responded instinctively, twisting away from the strike with fluid grace, while her mind calculated 18 different counterattacks that would end the fight instantly, most of them lethal. She chose none of them, instead maintaining a defensive posture, studying her opponent's technique. The war god within her snarled in frustration at the missed opportunities to strike, to dominate, to destroy. Voss pressed his advantage, blade flashing in complex patterns designed to force an aggressive response. "Fight back, war god," he taunted. "Show your true nature." Mira continued evading, each movement more precise than the last, as her body fully integrated the ancient combat knowledge. She recognized Voss's strategy. He was trying to provoke her into revealing the uncontrolled violence he believed inevitable in her kind. "My restraint is not weakness," she said, finally catching his wrist in mid-strike and using his momentum to disarm him without causing injury. "It is the ultimate expression of what humanity was meant to be." The blade clattered to the ground. Voss immediately drew his sidearm, but Mira was already moving, closing the distance between them with inhuman speed. She struck his arm with calculated force, enough to numb the limb temporarily, without breaking bones, and the weapon joined his blade in the dust. Now unarmed, the Admiral resorted to hand-to-hand combat, his 8-fingered hands forming traditional Savorian fighting claws. His technique was impressive, the product of decades of military training. But Mira had the accumulated combat knowledge of an entire species designed for warfare. She blocked his strikes with precise movements, her body adapting to his style in real time, her reflexes operating beyond normal human limits. When she finally counterattacked, it was with controlled precision. 3 strikes, sternum, shoulder, knee, each calibrated to cause temporary pain without lasting damage. Voss staggered, but remained standing through sheer force of will. "Finish it," he gasped. "Prove what you truly are." The war god within Mira roared for completion, for domination, for the killing blow that would demonstrate superiority. Her muscles tensed with the potential energy of a predator about to strike. Instead, she stepped back and lowered her hands. "I choose differently," she said simply. Voss stared at her, inner eyelids rapidly blinking in what she now recognized as confusion. "You had victory within your grasp." "Victory wasn't the point," Mira replied. "The point was choice. Humanity's true strength isn't our capacity for violence. It's our ability to choose when not to use it." Around them, both Savorian guards and human crew watched in silence, witnessing something none of them had expected: restraint where domination was possible. Slowly, painfully, Admiral Voss straightened to his full height. "In all our records of the war gods, there is no mention of this temperance." "Perhaps your ancestors saw only what they feared most," Mira suggested. "Or perhaps this balance is what we've learned during our centuries of peace." The Admiral retrieved his blade and returned it to his belt with ceremonial precision. "You have honored the terms of our combat, Captain Saul. My forces will withdraw." He turned to leave, then paused. "But know this, we will be watching. Should humanity ever fully embrace its war god nature, the Savorian Protectorate will not hesitate to act." Mira nodded. "As is your right. But also know this. Should the Alliance ever face an existential threat, humanity may need to embrace more of our heritage, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Voss considered her words, then inclined his head slightly, a gesture of respect, if not agreement. He and his guards returned to their transport, leaving Mira and her crew standing before the ancient temple that had changed them forever. "What now, Captain?" Lieutenant Tan asked as they watched the Savorian vessels depart. Mira turned toward the temple entrance, the symbols still glowing with activation energy. "Now, we make sure this power is understood, not feared, controlled, not suppressed." Dr. Carlin joined them, his tablet filled with translations. "According to the archives, there's a way to close the temple without completely deactivating the knowledge it's awakened in us. A balance point." "Then that's our path forward," Mira decided. "We maintain the balance." 3 weeks later, Captain Mirasol stood before the temple door as the closing ceremony neared completion. Her crew, forever changed by their awakening, worked with focused precision to implement Dr. Carlin's translated instructions. The massive stone door had been gradually closing each day as they completed the ritual steps, the glowing symbols dimming but not extinguishing completely. As Carlin had discovered, total deactivation wasn't necessary or even desirable. What mattered was conscious control. "Final sequence ready, Captain," Tan reported, her movements still carrying that newfound grace that marked all of them now. Mira nodded. "Proceed." Tan placed her hand on the designated symbol, and the door continued its slow movement until only a narrow gap remained, enough to maintain connection without risking uncontrolled activation. "Energy reading stabilizing," Chief Malik confirmed from his monitoring equipment. "The temple is entering dormancy, but the connection remains." Dr. Carlin approached, his weathered face showing both satisfaction and concern. "Our report to Alliance headquarters has been carefully edited. We've documented the Savorian attack as a territorial dispute, with no mention of the temple's true purpose or what it awakened in us." "And the Savorians?" Mira asked. "Admiral Voss appears to be honoring his agreement. Their fleet has withdrawn from the system entirely." Mira gazed at the temple doorway, feeling the war god within her, no longer a raging beast demanding release, but a controlled power she could now access consciously. All her crew had reached similar equilibrium, their awakened abilities integrated rather than dominating. "Humanity has lived in peace for centuries without knowing our origins," she said quietly. "Now that we know, we can choose our path forward with open eyes." Lieutenant Tan stepped beside her. "Do you think the Alliance would fear us if they knew the truth?" "Some would," Mira acknowledged. "Just as the Savorians do. Fear of potential is a powerful thing." "So we keep the secret?" Tan asked. Mira considered the question carefully. "For now, until we fully understand what we've become. The balance is too fragile, the implications too vast." She placed her hand on the temple door one last time, feeling the ancient energy respond to her touch. "But we will maintain a presence here, study, learn, prepare." "For what?" Chief Malik asked, joining them. "For choice," Mira replied. "The day may come when humanity needs to embrace more of its heritage, not for conquest, but for protection. When that day comes, we should understand our power well enough to use it wisely." She stepped back from the door, watching as the final ritual sequence completed, and the gap narrowed to just a few inches, enough to maintain connection without allowing uncontrolled access. "The temple door remains just slightly open," Dr. Carlin observed. "A reminder rather than a full awakening." "As it should be," Mira agreed. "We are diplomats first, warriors second. But now we know both aspects exist within us, by design, not by accident." As they walked back toward the outpost, leaving the ancient temple in its state of balanced dormancy, Mira felt a profound sense of responsibility settling over her. Humanity had been created as weapons, but they had become so much more: explorers, diplomats, creators. The war gods slumbered again, But now they slumbered with awareness, with choice. The temple door remained slightly ajar, a reminder of potential rather than a call to arms. And if that door ever needed to open fully again, it would be humanity's decision when and how to step through it.